The Nature of Predators, Part 53, by SpacePaladin 15. Memory transcripts from subject, UN Secretary General Elias Meyer. Date, Standardized Human Time, October 18, 2136. There was something uncivilized stirring in my soul as heartbreaking images flooded in from Earth. Seeing historic cities pounded into rubble and hearing tales of incalculable devastation was a gut-wrenching blow. It had been a mere 3 months since the first contact mission. In that span, 25 species had taken concrete actions to genocide human civilians without the slightest of provocation. Grappling with my own actions, my own failure weighed heavily upon me. I was responsible for mankind's future, and I hadn't used every option at our disposal. What if there was something else I could have done? Was I a coward for abandoning Earth, especially to bargain with the metaphorical devil? It would take years to rebuild our homeworld. 112 bombs had detonated on its surface, churning up contaminants and killing more than 1 billion. Reversing the atmospheric pollution would be a gruesome challenge, and we would witness more casualties in the aftermath. Strange how it wasn't humans who leveled our planet. I always thought it would be us who were our undoing. Elias, we're docking at the lecture resort on Titan Station in 60 seconds. Dr. Cooper, the current Secretary of Alien Affairs, tapped my shoulder. Are you going to be up to this? You look unwell. My first thought was always diplomacy in the past. Brutal warfare was something I thought best relegated to our ancestors. It should feel monstrous for a pacifist leader to long see our enemies' worlds desolated down to their cores. But now, I couldn't see myself restraining the generals. Their path seemed the only way. I craved the Federation's destruction as an organization. Regardless of the understanding that a small percentage were involved in the attack, their bigotry was incompatible with our survival. How many species had aided us? A mere 2, excluding the Arxer's unexpected arrival. The Zeruleans were the only new race I cared to bargain with in the aftermath. The words of friendship other diplomats spoke proved to be empty. None of them backed us when it came down to it. The bystanders felt every bit as sinister as the Krakatoa and their pals in this moment. Your head has to be in this, Elias, no matter how impossible that is. Cooper said gently. We can't afford any mishaps when 10,000 Arxer ships are still in the Sol system. I met her eyes. I never meant for them to come here. This wasn't what... The Greys already knew where Earth was. You couldn't have known that. For what it's worth, they did save our asses. Staving off my self-pity, my thoughts returned to the urgent matters at hand. The Arxer decimated the Krakatoa strike force with an excess of arrivals. It was concerning that the reptiles had so many vessels in this sector. Chief Hunter Isif kept his fleet in orbit to protect us from secondary attacks, but I couldn't help but to think they were scrutinizing us. The unpleasant reality was that the reptiles could plunder or conquer Earth now if they wanted. We were vulnerable, and the heavy losses left military defenses sparse. The Dominion's philosophy was still reprehensible to me, a far cry from the UN's modicum of equality. However, at this point we had to keep the Arxer sated at all costs. So when Isif requested an audience with me by name, I chartered the first ship I could find off Vindil Prime. Governor Tarva, bless her heart, squeaked out and offered to join me, but I wasn't going to place her in the line of fire. The Arxer hunter understood our inability to accommodate him on Earth. He agreed to wait in Titan's travel lodging for my arrival. I don't like rolling out the red carpet for someone who called the vanilla a delicacy and referred to Tarva as dinner. I'd like to punch him in the nose for saying that. Cooper, do you think the Arxer are capable of societal change? I asked, as our ship completed its landing protocol. If, let's say, they had a stable, non-sapient food source. The former SETI employee tilted her head. I don't know. The Greys weren't always like this, but they altered their gene pool. I don't know if they still have art, whether they indulge in empathy. That is the mystery. By the way, can you set up a comms link with the Zerulean fleet in 15 minutes? We have some damage control on that front. I'll do that after I hear that you're alright from your own lips. You need to hear yourself say it. I am fine. Once these alien visitors are handled, it's time to bring every government together, then to rally the people behind our banner and remind them not to give up. My shoes clicked on the decadent marble floor, and the crystal overhang reflected the colors of the rainbow from above. A glass viewport stretched the length of the lobby, complete with interactive holograms and exquisite telescopes. I observed a surreal view of Saturn as I passed the vacated concierge desk. This was considered the nicest hotel in space. For the sake of Earth survivors, I hope the Arxer agreed. I felt awkward approaching the suite given to Isif. There was no question that the reptile could snap me in half with his jaws if he desired. Given the aggressivity the Arxer were prone to, and how they detested weakness, this was gambling with my welfare. But with humanity's precarious position, someone had to pacify the baby killers. I rapped my knuckles against the door. Hello? My voice couldn't have sounded more uncertain, and I cursed my nerves. The door creaked open. A pair of slit pupils surveyed me from the pitch-black interior. Isif didn't have any lights on, which added to my unease. He towered over me by at least 1.5 feet, showing teeth longer than my finger. The alien's tongue flittered. Elias Meyer. 2 names, yes? We meet in person. Come in. I clasped both hands behind my back and attempted to keep my strides even. As my eyes adjusted to the darkness, I noticed 3 other Arxers scattered about the living room. It was a safe assumption that they were advisors, servants, or military personnel. Perhaps it was a mistake to come alone, or even conveyed that I lacked support. Thanks for your military assistance, I croaked, pawing at my dry throat. I'm sorry. Do you have any water nearby? Isif tossed a water bottle at me and I barely racked it in time to catch it. The liquid was lukewarm, but I chugged it with gratitude. The greys seemed to be dissecting my every move, like a specimen under a microscope. There was never a plan for formal first contact with the Arxer. I wasn't sure where to begin. We were supposed to be using the greys to get the Krakatoa off our back. Now, would you like our assistance with rescue efforts? Human Command indicated that your ground residents may react poorly to us walking the streets. Isif growled. I scratched my head in discomfort. I suggest asking each nation specifically. I'm sure some would accept the offer, and I appreciate it very much. Thank you. From us all, the people of Earth are in your debt, and... The Arxer curled his lip. Hey, relax. You've gone through a lot, human. Don't worry about defending us. I prefer honesty. Right. Well, many people did not have a favorable view of your species prior to this. Myself included. I don't imagine that will change overnight, especially with xenophobia abounding. Isif's eyes glittered in the darkness, narrowing to the point that they were hardly open. His nostrils flared, and he seemed to meditate on a scent for a second. His grin intensified. I wondered if he could smell my nervousness. The Chief Hunter's gaze moved to the holopad clipped to my belt. We wish to access your system's internet, the reptile continued in a polite rumble. My scientists here requested documentation of your hunting and domestication specifically. It would also enter if your research is remotely professional. I nodded. All right. Though we're quite different types of predators, I have no issue with sharing those results. My holopad made its way into my hands, and I punched the keyword domestication into a search engine. An online encyclopedia article popped up as the top result, which should be sufficient. Unless I deemed it a necessity, I was going to try to conceal our persistence hunting ancestry. It might make the Arxer view us as a serious threat, due to our ability to weather a war of attrition. Isif snatched the device from my grip. The hunter must be quite eager to learn about us. I wasn't sure whether that was a positive sign or not. Perhaps the Dominion was assessing whether we shared their child-munching fervor. They could also be checking if we were on board with culling our weaker population. Had I just tipped them off by admitting our disdain for them? Fascinating. So humans did use animals for labor and livestock purposes like us, he murmured. However, you keep pets too. Lesser beings cuddled for entertainment and companionship, in return for emotional benefits to their owners. This is a normal practice? Yes. This behavior is derived from a pack predator's social needs, I would presume. And you care for these pets like they are part of your tribe, I assume. Usually. Many humans struggle with living alone. In opposite of how we tire of company in swift fashion, your affinity for the vanilla stems from this pet category, does it not? It took a great effort to refrain from a reflexive denial. I would never classify sentient beings, especially our friends, as animalistic playthings. But if the Arxer could view the vanilla as mere pets, that would be an upgrade to cattle consideration. It might make the reptiles willing to facilitate the release of the vanilla captives. Remember, the Great might require predatory bases to accept our claims. Whatever concessions must be made to stall, to convince them we're on the same side, just do it. Yes, humans love adopting companion animals, I grumbled. Isif glared at his advisors. Satisfied about the vanille? I told you that humans are just social predators, and those animals are a misapplication of their evolution. An Oxford scientist coughed uneasily. Humans are the first documented pack predator sapiens, sir. It was reasonable to ask why. You are dismissed. Wander until you are summoned, so that Elias Meyer and I may talk in private. There are discussion matters that are above your clearance level. The reptilian subordinates switched their tails and slunk off in obedience. Isif watched them depart, exhaling a hearty sigh. He pressed my holopad back into my hands and searched my gaze with his own. There was a certain trepidation in his dark orbs. He waited in silence for a full minute, clearly apprehensive of prying ears. I studied the alien's mannerisms with curiosity. Was the chief hunter expecting mutiny from his own ranks? How disciplined was Ork's command? Something told me his private divulgence would be enlightening as to what he expected from humanity. I'm sure you intend for Earth to repay your assistance with some form of compensation, I said. Isif bared his fangs. Oh, you will, Elias Meyer. But not today. In the future. I don't follow. The fact is, you don't like that we keep the prey sapiens as food. That is your entire issue with us. It violates your moral code. I'm not blind. This commander could not realize we had backed the Federation with full-throated support. We didn't want the Dominion classing the UN as an enemy now. I tried to maintain my best poker face. Though the Orkster seemed to see through my neutral expression, my silence must have confirmed his suspicions. But what could I say? I shrugged. We're different. Humans, well, you haven't bred out your empathetic people. I thought you could help us attain an alternative food source. Isif's voice was hardly more than a whisper, and he looked jumpy. That is why I sent our entire sector fleet to your aid. My species could have a better future someday with your guidance. Beyond war and cruelty. What? A week ago you gave me a speech about what a delicacy the vanilla are. Called our beloved ally dinner. I hissed. The reptile sighed. Tarva had some spunk for prey, actually. Don't be unreasonable. I was recording that transmission in front of my crew, and also sending it home. I like my head attached to my body, human. My eyes widened. It wasn't a shock that the Orkster Dominion executed anyone who spoke out against their policies. However, it was encouraging news if some high-ranking officers didn't toe the party line. None of our captors saw any issue with their atrocities. They had boasted about how sophisticated their ideology was. Cattle ships could be stocked with true believers. Not the best sample size, I suppose. So you don't support your racist farming practices? I pressed. A growl rumbled in Isif's throat. I'd prefer food that doesn't talk. This war has gone on long enough, and your allies have shown me that some of them could accept predators. If we're reduced to our animal instincts, we're no different than the Federation. I concur on the instincts. Fine, I'll bite. Why are you telling me this? So that you understand that I'm on your side, and you'll be more forthcoming with future compensation. If you don't push your luck, I might be able to bargain for the release of more friends. That was enough to pique my interest. Liberating any captive ceruleans might make them a bit more forgiving of our Orkster savers. Humanity had to reward the teddy bears for their fealty somehow. They sent aid without any history between our worlds. It also meant that Isif might follow through with the vanilla deal. I still clung to the hope that one day we could end all sapient farms. No matter what the Federation had done to our two species, eating and torturing children wasn't the answer. Downplaying or excusing atrocities wasn't going to bring back London or Los Angeles. Mankind was better than that. I cracked my knuckles. How on earth are you in self-mercy to your government? Simple. Not phrasing it as treasonous mercy. Isif chuckled. Just stating it as reclaiming the farming glory of our ancestors. Talking about how simple prey breed quicker. I work within the powers that be. Clever thinking. I'll do what I can to uphold our bargain. Though our production capacity is limited now. Human, I'm understanding. Rational. Don't starve your people for this vanilla deal. What's important is that we're allies in the long run. This Arxer wasn't a feral creature that saw hunting as life's sole joy. There was an empathetic capability in his concern for human life, and that wariness of the war he was born into. He projected an aura of sincerity, in contrast to their reputation. That was more than I saw in the Krakatoa and their ilk. I wondered what this predator race would have been, without outside interference. Thanks, Isif. If you are certain you can control your people, I'll find amenable places for you to direct your assistance, I whispered. Humor flashed in his eyes. Anything for our friend. Though I presume you don't want me to share our food stash. I hesitated. Actually, if you have extra herbivore feed, it might be edible to us. We're omnivores. Ah, you are leaf lickers. Duly noted. I'll see what I can do. This encounter went better than I anticipated, but unpleasantries were still ahead with his ruling call. Even if Isif had given us grounds to work with, a Federation-Arxer confrontation was a powder keg. I didn't want it going off in the Sol system. Humanity had to find a way to smooth the ruffled fur, and keep two polar opposite species on our side.